Hello everyone, welcome to this Vanguard Tactics Masterclass. I'm Stephen Box. Now I just want to say a massive thank you for all of you who are, commenting in the comments and really looking forward to this masterclass and how to become a better 40k player. Now I've put so much work into this masterclass. It's been, something I've been really excited about sharing with you guys, and I'm absolutely loving the positivity from the chat. So it is just me here on my own. So I am going to have to, try and navigate through the top-down cam, this cam, the cam you're looking at, and obviously you guys. So obviously, please bear with me. I'm extremely excited about, like I said, delivering this. We've got some really good concepts to go over, and ultimately, I think you should all leave with just something today. So what I'd really like to know from you guys is what's one thing you would like to learn from today that would make your time that you're giving me of value. Okay, so what is one thing that you would just like to gain from today? Just one thing, pop it in the chat, comment in and just say, look, what's that one thing that you would really like to gain from today? So then we can look back at this at the end of this masterclass, and then you can think, well, did I get that? Was that value? Was that worth my time investment? Did I learn something there? Or was Steve talking a load of rubbish and I'll never ever use that? So anyway, guys, I hope you are all doing well and really excited here. We've got over 100 people in the chat, which is awesome. And I think we've got some great comments coming in now. How to make a better battle plan. We're definitely going to be covering that today. Pre-game planning and plan. I've got a really good scenario for you guys. I'm just going to show you some of the things I have planned for you. Okay, so we're going to head over to this cam. Look, we've got the Dark Angels out ready. Okay, new Talon Master, converted up by myself. Absolutely love that model. And we're going to be going over how to deploy against an army like Dark Angels. So on one side we've got the, on one side we've got the Harlequins, and then on the other we have the, or the Eldar even in Harlequins combined. And then obviously on the other we've got the Dark Angels. Now for some reason that camera looks like it's been flipped, so I'm just going to quickly adjust that before we really get in today. And really what we're going to do, just hang on a couple of minutes before we move on, just to make sure that everybody's got a chance to join, and they're basically getting here all okay. So just give me 2 seconds and I'm going to change that camera around, because like I said, it does look like it's flipped around there. And we don't want that at all, so we're going to get rid of that somehow. If I can't figure it out right now, we'll just keep it as it is. But again, apologies for if that is annoying for anybody. Anyway, we'll go with what we've got. Oh, here we go. Can mirror that camera. There we have it. Okay. So then obviously these cameras here should all match up now. There we have it, look, so beautiful. Nice, look at that. Okay, so anyway, that's everything started. So let's really kick on with this. Now, if for example you are unable to watch the rest of this, you will be sent a live recording. But at the very end of today, what I'm going to be doing is allowing you guys to essentially ask any questions that you have, okay? So that's one thing that we're definitely going to be going over. And also what we're going to be doing is, well, I'm just going to cover that in a second. I just want to check one bit of information right here. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, there we have it. So we're going to move on to what you guys can expect from today. I'm just reading some of your guys' comments in the chat here. Absolutely love it. Somebody said, I'd absolutely love to get some idea of how to get some of the fly zone to work if that's possible. Okay, so let's have a little cover what we're going over today. Just going to share my slides with you. Okay, do you know what, we're going to keep this, we'll keep this open, so that just allows me to, right, let's do this. Okay guys, as I said, this lesson is all about how to become a great 40k player, and that's really what we're going to be focusing on today. Alright, so let me go over the format with you. So we're going to go over quick introduction, what you guys can expect from today. Then what we're going to be covering is the actual masterclass itself. So we're going to be looking at those 5 pillars that we mentioned. What are they, and how can you really take more and more from those pillars to make sure that you can start to implement them no matter what level that you're at. Next up, we're going to look at a slight sneak peek into what the academy is like. So that's kind of what comes next after this, if any of you choose to do that, because I get loads of questions about the academy and whether it's going to be right for you. So I just need 1 minute of your time towards the end of this, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a deep dive into and a sneak peek into what the academy is really like. So if you've been sat on the fence thinking about it and you haven't quite took the plunge, maybe that sneak peek will be right for you. And then at the very end, we are going to have some chance to get all of your questions answered. So that was one thing that I really wanted to make sure that today's masterclass was a little bit different to some of the others, is that this is going to be very, very interactive. Okay, so it's going to give you that chance to get your questions answered, okay? And we have Super Chat enabled. Fingers crossed it's working, and all money that you guys donate today, or put a Super Chat in, every single penny that is being essentially generated from YouTube through Super Chats and also YouTube advertisement for the month of February is going to be all donated to the charity Movember that we support, because they do such a great job in helping people with mental health, in their physical health as well. So it's a charity we're really passionate about. Last year we raised over £1,000, and I want to make a big dent into that target today. So if you do find value whatsoever, any Super Chat payments that you put in for us to get a question answered, or even it's just showing your support, I'm going to donate all of that. When I get my YouTube bill in at the kind of halfway through March for Feb, I'm going to send that all over to Movember, okay? And I'll put out a nice post on Facebook to show kind of what we've done, and it will again be all thanks to you guys and also the the people that support the streams on a Tuesday night. So, learning outcomes. What can you, I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller because there seems to be a slight delay. What can you expect by the end of this masterclass? Well, for us, it's going to be understanding the next steps to improve your 40k gameplay and going over those 5 pillars. Okay, now what we're going to be covering is things like how to analyze where you're currently at, how to know then the next logical steps, how to look at your list, and how to build an army that you really enjoy playing with. And then finally, building out game plans, tempo, flow, all those cool sort of more technical bits we're going to go into at the end of this. So I'm hoping this masterclass will last about an hour and a half, and obviously a good chunk of time then to get really interactive. And what I've made sure I've done is given you guys plenty of time to sit back, divulge some of the information I'm telling you, and then pop some of your questions in as we go as well, all right? So who's Vanguard Tactics? Well, you may be wondering, this might be the first time you've found us, and you might be thinking, who's Vanguard Tactics? Well, for us, we specialize in teaching Warhammer 40k to people to get the most out of their hobby, build community, and escape, and help people escape their day-to-day stresses. And we've developed the VT Academy to help our students become incredible players through our structured models, tutorials, and obviously our weekly lessons. And we've become the ambassadors for fair play and sportsmanship throughout all levels of the game. I have been a teacher for as long as I can remember. I've been coaching since the age of 14. That was when I first started coaching. It's an international sport level, as I used to play at an international level for volleyball and also national level for hockey. I became an international bodybuilder, and I've been teaching and coaching ever since, mainly obviously for fitness and nutrition. So my university studies were all into sport and how to become better, competitive play, sportsmanship, and also then I finished that off with a teaching masters. Started teaching, moved away from teaching explicitly in terms of the secondary school education that I used to teach at, and then moved into fitness and nutrition coaching, which I've kind of been doing up until the last couple of years. So that's kind of me. I fell into love with 40k when I was younger. I picked it back up again because I really needed something to help me escape from what I was going through at the time, and I met an incredible bunch of people And I decided to, start up this channel to really help others improve their game and maybe not, sort of speed through some of those mistakes that I was, learning through. I was trying to watch battle reports, but there just wasn't the information that I required to get to where I wanted to be. And I just wanted to have fun. I just wanted to go to tournaments, enjoy it, and just feel comfortable there. And then everything that's come on ever since has been a bonus. And I've done, quite well with some tournaments. Last year I was ranked the #1 Blood Angel player by the ITC, and what that is basically is you go to 4 events, and for each of those events you play and you get a score, and whoever has the highest score at the end of the year is crowned that champion for that faction. So I was really lucky to do that with the ITC and the Blood Angels, and then I think I finished in the top 100, same for last year as well. So I've had some good successes with 40k, but anyway, let's move on. That's a little bit about me. I want to know about you, and I want to see, what you guys are, saying. You're sort of playing in the chat, and there's a lot of Blood Angel players here. We're looking at some Death Corp here as well. Some brand new Blood Angels player. Apparently, this super chat is not enabled. Well, if that's the case, I'm really, really gutted. Really gutted if that is the case. In which case, we'll just have to go without it, unfortunately. And maybe I'll send up a notification page or something later on if you guys do want to donate anything. But anyway, let's just move on. Let's not worry about that too much. Yeah, let's not worry about that too much. I just wonder if there's anything here I can quickly add. There doesn't seem to be, so we'll move on. So I'm just going to quickly jump into your comments now and answer any sort of initial questions or give you guys a bit of reply to anything. Okay, so loads of people asking what sort of army they should play. That's awesome. Some people saying that Alpha Legion, Adeptus Mechanicus, Deathwatch. So we've got a whole host here, which is awesome. And next up, what we want to really go into is making sure that there's something here for everybody. We really want to make sure that every single one of you takes something away. So no matter what army you're playing or want to play or picking up or thinking about playing, and I'm sure there's going to be so many of you from all different levels of the game here, there's going to be something for everyone. Because what I'm going to teach today is not specific about a certain faction. It's extremely more about game theory, so it actually applies to every single model in the game, which I think is so great. And that's kind of what we really try to do at Vanguard Tactics anyway, is give you guys the knowledge so that you can pick up any army and understand how the best way to use that army is, okay? Okay, so let's move on to how this masterclass can start to help you a little bit more. Now what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to press full view on this, and we're going to go for a little while, and then we're going to stop when there are time for some questions, all right? So how can this masterclass help you? Well, there are so many different ways, obviously, to play the game of 40k. You've got that friendly, where you're, sort of friendly play, where you're just, learning a little bit faster, potentially. If that's kind of where you're at, it's just playing with friends. Hopefully this masterclass will help you be able to think critically so you can learn faster and obviously improve with your friends. That'll be great. Maybe you can teach some of the things to your friends that you've learned from today. That'll be awesome. If you're more of a narrative player, hopefully it can help you build a list with a real theme and a play style. So obviously, if you want to defend that barricade, or maybe you've just you've been stranded in the middle of the table and you've been surrounded, like an Orc's Drift kind of approach, hopefully you can build out a Crimson Fist, a Black Templars army that's super thematic but also plays like it should as well, and so you don't get that disconnect. Okay, so that's kind of really what hopefully I can help you today with. If you just go to your friendly local gaming store, depending on where you are in the world with COVID, but hopefully in the next 6 months we'll kind of be getting back to some sort of normality, fingers crossed. But hopefully if that's you and you just go to get those pickup games, hopefully it will help you write a well-rounded list. So when you're going down to the club, it doesn't matter who you play, you've got an answer for everything, okay? And that's really important, is creating that balance, because otherwise, you've probably seen it before. People go, oh, I'm playing against Iron Hands at the weekend, what army or what unit should I take? And they completely tailor their army to their opponent, and it just gives their opponent a really sense of feel bads. So again, you just want to be able to, if you're going to pick up games, a well-rounded list that you can take, and no matter whether you're playing Imperial Knights or you're going against Eldar or the latest Death Guard, whatever it might be, you've got an answer, okay? So if you are kind of in the playtesting sort of stages and you're kind of working out all the kinks in your army before you go to a tournament or something, then yeah, hopefully this today, when we get into the minutiae of, you know, the phases of the game, going over like how to deploy your army and looking at some of those individual elements is going to really help you make sure you're getting the most out of your models. And then finally, if you are, you know, a competition, you know, you're thinking about going to a competition, maybe you're already a competitor, then how to control the flow and the tempo of the game is going to be really, hopefully valuable for you guys. And I'm going to cover what that means. Now, I've obviously said a lot that we are more of a competitive based channel. So what does that mean to us? And that's really important that I clarify that today, because it doesn't mean we try and win at all costs. As I said, we've become the ambassadors for fair play and sportsmanship. So for us, it's about those 3 E's. Effective as possible. So you want your army to be effective on the table. Okay, you want to make sure it's not like lackluster. You can hit a little bit hard where you need to. You can strike where you have to. You know, at the end of the day, we're playing in the grim dark of 40k, and that's exactly what, you know, those armies are built to do. They don't mess about. So you need to have it effective. It also needs to be efficient. Okay, so when I talk about efficiencies, I want units that can do more than just one thing. I don't want a unit that has this one sole purpose. I want it to be multifactorial when we actually come to playing on the tabletop. Okay, and if it does a job, I want it to do that job extremely well, all right? So that's what we start to mean about efficiency. And then finally, it's got to be enjoyable. Your army that you choose to play with, it has to be enjoyable, because if you don't enjoy it, then you're going to fall out, you know, of love with the game or with whatever you're doing. And again, that goes against completely what we're here to try to do, which is try to improve that lifelong participation in this beautiful hobby. And finally, we're going to put all this together so we can get consistent and repeatable results or tactics, okay? So that's kind of what we want. We're good scientists, and that's kind of what we're looking for, is consistent and that, you know, repeatability, okay? So when you put something on the table, it should do this job or role for you. And that just allows you to play with the best tactics, the best strategy, and not trying to cheat your opponent or not letting them have a go back or trying to play gotcha hammer, whatever it is. We don't do that. We just want to be the best general, okay? And I'm sure you play the game the same reason I do. Meet people, have fun, and just have that kind of battle of wits at the table. I love the puzzles that happen in 40k. You know, it's that real kind of, I'm creating puzzles for my opponent to solve in my turns, and he's doing or she's doing exactly the same to me. So I just love that element of it. And a good close game is exactly kind of what we want to try and improve. And I want to help you all bring your game up so you can really bring your best to the table. So the first stage is really identifying your current skill level, okay? The hardest part of any sort of journey is really getting going, okay? So the hardest part of starting is just literally that first initial stages that you're doing now, okay? But before we even start, we need to analyze where you're at, because if you don't understand where you're currently at in your journey, you're never going to know that next logical step. And that's what I'm going to hopefully help you, in the next 10 minutes, really identify where you're at and then how we can move on to that next level, okay? So that's one thing. And there's a really interesting analogy that I've heard, is that the game of 40k is extremely complex, and there's more armies, you know, new codexes, new rules, everything being brought out all the time by Games Workshop. But to actually get started in the game, to be a good player, is extremely difficult. There's so much prep work, so many skills, so much knowledge you have to really learn and go deep with, that actually getting started is the hardest thing. It's a bit like a rocket. It takes months and months and months and months and months to actually get a rocket off the ground, but as soon as it's left that 10 centimeters, going 10 miles is so much easier than that initial stage. So once you're going, it becomes so much easier. So if you think about today being comfortable at the tabletop, in the matter against whatever opponent you're playing, then hopefully if you take some of that from today, it's been of value. So let's have a little look at current skill levels. So like I said, we've already gone over why this is important, but what are those different levels? And for me, again, it becomes about being comfortable. So I've got a little ranking here, 1 to 7, and I want to know where you think, out of 1 to 7, you're currently at, okay? So just pop it in the comments as we go through it. You think, yeah, that's me. Pop it in, 1 to 7, where are you at? So at the moment, maybe you're just starting out and the only thing you feel comfortable doing really is watching battle reports. And sometimes even then you're thinking, I don't know what they're talking about there. I'm not sure what they're talking about. So if that's the case, we've all been there, we all had to start somewhere. I know I had to originally, so just pop yourself down as a 1. And if you are a 1, I want to welcome you to 40k, because it is an incredible hobby that I really hope you do, progress through these next levels, okay? Maybe you're just comfortable playing your friends, but perhaps you haven't quite had that confidence to, search where your local club is, or maybe you've had a couple of bad experiences and you've only kind of really been playing with your friends ever since. So what I want to try and help you do potentially is get that comfortability to go back to the club. Maybe, go to your friendly local gaming store, or, maybe have some pickup games that you can often find. That would be awesome. Maybe you just feel comfortable playing at your local club and getting those pickup games, but maybe aren't quite ready to start playing in a tournament, but are thinking about it. So I want to know if that's you. Or maybe you're, comfortable playing in an event, and then maybe once you're kind of there, it goes to consistently going, 3-2, which means you win 3 out of 5 games and you lose 2, or you're going 4-1. So you're putting in some good win records, some good level of consistency there with some wins. And maybe you're an RTT winner, and an RTT is basically a 30-man tournament held in a day, normally about 30-ish players, or maybe 10 to 30 players, 3 games, and maybe you start to win some of those. Or potentially become a GT winner, and a GT is anywhere from, I think, 30 up to 100, and maybe you've won some of those events. And then finally, maybe you're, a GT winner, a multiple GT winner, and you start to play for your country as well in the WTC. So that's kind of where those levels are at in terms of the game. And I can tell you now, every single level has its own challenges. And whatever that might be, that's good. And I want everybody to respect that from each other. And that's something that I really try to stress with my students on the academy, is we're all on a journey. And it's our job to help each other to that next level, okay? No matter what level you're at, you can always learn as well. It could take somebody that's a level 7 to actually speak to somebody completely new to the game and actually coach that person who's new to the game. And by teaching and that person asking them the right questions about how does that work, sometimes makes that top player think, actually, maybe I'm not sure, I need to look into that a little bit more. I know my gameplay has got better and better and better and better the more I've talked to new people. So again, we need to respect absolutely everybody. So what I want to know is where you're at, and where would you like to be by the end of the year? So let's say you're a 3 at the moment, you're happy going to your local club, but you want to be comfortable playing in an event. And what does that kind of mean to you? How's that going to improve or change your life? And does that mean that as we get a little bit older, maybe it opens up some new friendships, maybe it allows you to travel at the weekends, to get away with your friends? That would be awesome. Bring some social back into what has been quite a isolated year, and I think that's going to be something that we're all going to be looking forward to. So pop that in the chat, as I'm going to be really interested to find out, where you guys are currently at. So I'm going to head over to the chat now, and I'm going to just maybe dive in to see kind of where you guys are at. Loads of people putting their comments in here, which is awesome. Couple of 1s, couple of 2s, like I said, welcome. Some 4s in here, awesome. Starting to go to those events, doing well. Wicked, I think that's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, so tell me where you want to get to. This is brilliant, yeah. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Really, really good there. Some fantastic goals coming in as well. Cool, awesome. Right, let's move on. Okay, so. I'm just going to make myself a little bit, I'll tell you what, I'll put myself in the top right hand corner. Maybe I won't take up as much screen, but anyway. Okay. So the first thing that we want to look at is where are our knowledge gaps, all right? So I want you to spend a couple of minutes and I want you to really think about what areas of the game at the moment do you struggle with, all right? So it could be something really simple. Once you've done that, once you've had a think about it, pop it in the chat. And what we're trying to do from this is analyze what level of our knowledge has got gaps in it, okay? So think back to the last game you played and, you know, what element was it that really kind of made you struggle to come to a decisive thought process about? You know, were you just doing it because you kind of felt like you had to, but did you know why you should be doing it? And that is the most important question, is why. Why should you do anything? So, you know, these are just a few things here that I've not, you know, noted down. Is it the missions? Is that something that, you know, you maybe struggle with a little bit? Is how do each of the individual missions work? Like, how do you go about holding 2 and holding 3 objectives? You know, is it secondary picks? Do you feel like sometimes you just pick secondaries, you're not really sure why you're picking them maybe? Is it you struggle with deploying your army and you're just kind of putting things down without too much thought process? Or is it what weapons and warlord traits and abilities you should be, you know, taking on your list or armies or building when you do that? Or is it how you play against a certain army? Maybe it's, do you know what, I've got no clue how to beat Death Guard. I want to know. What is it, Steve? How do I take down Mortarion? How do I defeat the dreaded Deathwing from Dark Angels that have just come out? You know, what is it? What are you struggling with? Because once you can identify that in itself, that's an element that you can straight away start to work on, and we can start to put this into action, okay? And when we go into the minutiae a little bit later on with the actual gameplay, maybe we can go over some of this stuff, okay? So once you've had a little think there, before we move on, I want you just to, like I said, type that in the comments. What is it you're struggling with? Because then we're going to start to analyze your actual gameplay, okay? And this is more about the skills that you maybe need. Because once we've analyzed the knowledge gaps, we can then analyze the skills. Now, these skills that I've got here today, all of these skills have absolutely nothing to do with dice rolls. You'll be probably, a lot of people think 40k is a dice game, and to be honest, yes, we use dice, but the best players make dice irrelevant, okay? Now, we all get bad dice, and we all get good dice, but typically, somebody that will, and I'm really bad for rolling poorly, but I do still win a lot of my games, which tells me it's not about the bad dice rolls, it's about the positions you put yourself in to make dice rolls not matter so much, okay? So if you've ever seen that, I can't remember the film name now, there's kind of it's the Mockingjay, I think, it's the, I've forgotten the name, but Mockingjay is anything that sort of ping into my head where it's may the odds be ever in your favour. Well, in 40k, the best players make the odds in their favour, so they only need a double 1, or they only need to roll a 3 on 2 dice. They're the best players, okay? So, let's think about your last game, or maybe a game you watched recently, okay? Or you're just starting out, whatever it might be. And did you find yourself, and the reason why I'm going to ask you these questions is because you may not know that you have a skill gap until I ask you this question. And this is a type of questioning that I use with my fitness coaching is, in order to help you understand where you're at, I need to help provoke questions that you're going to ask yourself. So, did you find yourself not being able to hold objectives? Maybe that's something that you can think back and go, actually, yeah, Steve's right, I only scored 10 points on the primary in that game. Maybe, did you find yourself not being in range to use your guns that often? You know, did you find yourself failing charges? Did you find yourself dying too fast and not having any models left at turn 3 or something? Did you find yourself not scoring very well on either the primary or the secondary? Did you find yourself struggling to deal with some of the enemy units? And did you find yourself getting annoyed with some of those powerful units in the game? And if you've ever sat there and gone, oh, that's broken, or that's overpowered, or that's ridiculous, or, you know, your opponent's using something and you're just like, no, that's cheesy or whatever. I can promise you there's a way around it. And I'm going to hopefully give you some ideas today where next time you're not going to worry about it, because you're going to have the skills and the knowledge to counter that thing, and you're going to make their greatest strength their biggest weakness. Okay, and if a good 40k player will be able to do that. Okay, you've brought Mortarion and he's big and scary, but what's his biggest strength? Now how do we make that his biggest weakness? Okay, and that's a really important skill. So once you've had a little think there about, what some of those skills that you might maybe need, well, let's have a little look at this. So we're going to go through these problems that I mentioned before, and they're all in red. And I'm going to tell you the skill that you need to learn a little bit deeper about in order to fix that problem. So we've now got the problems, and we've paired that with the solutions. So did you find yourself not being able to hold objectives? In that case, it was it's movement that you really need to focus on. So it's, where are your models moving? How are you moving them? How far are you moving them? Having the confidence to move them the right way? Is it the fact that you need to be able to plan ahead a little bit better? Are you using charges, pile-ins, consolidations to get you free movement? Are you using those stratagems in extra abilities to maximize movement from your units? Are you setting up the next turn's movement phase? That's where you're going wrong, and that's kind of what we need to try and discover, is giving you the tools in the future to help you with that. Okay, so did you find yourself not being in range to use your guns? Well, that is again a deployment problem. That's a movement problem. Just let these things soak in and just think, actually, yeah, maybe I didn't deploy very well. Maybe that's why I always felt like I was on the back foot. Did you find yourself failing charges, consistently needing 9s and 8s and 7s and just not getting any of them? Well, again, that was a movement problem and a planning problem. Maybe you tried to get that turn 1 or turn 2 charge, but if you'd have waited until turn 3, you'd have guaranteed it and you wouldn't have lost your unit in the process, okay? I use Harlequins, I use Blood Angels, I use Sisters of Battle, so I'm constantly charging all of the time. But I rarely fail them, okay? Did you find yourself dying too fast? Well, maybe that's a deployment or a game plan, or even potentially even a list problem, okay? Maybe you weren't using terrain very well. Maybe you weren't using your movement. Maybe it's the knowledge of the terrain rules that we need to help you with, or even just setting up the table in the right way could really help you. Did you not find yourself scoring well? Well, that's a list or a game plan issue. Maybe your list isn't good enough to actually score on the mission. Did you find yourself struggling to deal with enemy units? Well, that was maybe a list issue or target priority problem. And did you find yourself getting annoyed with those powerful units? Well, again, it's about threat analysis. Are you analysing what that unit can do and having a game plan to deal with that, okay? And hopefully that's given you something now to hold on to. Just pick one thing and go, yeah, every time I watch a battle report, or every time I watch one of Steve's Academy lessons, or one of the VT free learn how to play videos, whatever it might be, or next time I play, I'm going to ask myself, why am I doing that in the movement phase? Or how can I do better? And critically analyse absolutely everything that you're doing for that one phase that you've analysed today is something that you need to work on. Because I can promise you, if you do that for 12 weeks, or over your next 10 games or even 6 games, you're going to see some really good improvements, okay? So I've got a couple of time for a couple of questions, okay? So we're going to quickly jump over into the chat, and I'm happy to answer any questions on that before we move on. So hopefully you guys are keeping up so far. We've got 183 current viewers, which is awesome. Like I said, I want to try and get 200 likes by the end of today's masterclass. So yeah, any questions whatsoever, put them in. That would be brilliant. Yeah, questions are coming in thick and fast now. Yeah. Somebody said here, Will, he said, I've struggled badly with the amount of time I take to finish a turn. This is a great question, and something I know a lot of people struggle with, is timing. And that comes down to a decision-making process. And a lot of the time we've got so many units on the table, okay? We could be using 10 to 13 units. Now they can all move, they can all shoot, they can all do combat, they can all maybe do psychic phases as well. Now I always bring it back to my core thing is, just because you can doesn't mean you should, all right? So just because I can shoot this unit doesn't mean I'm going to. Just because I can move this unit, if I deployed them correctly, maybe they don't need to move at all until turn 3 or turn 4. Okay, so again, that's just something in which we want to make sure that we're really focusing on is not trying to achieve absolutely everything, just try and achieve the vital things. And when we come on to how to generate a game plan, I think you're going to really understand a little bit more about where I'm going with that. And there's these 3 things that I really focus on, and that's, what do I want to try and kill this turn? What one thing do I want to kill? What one objective or 2 objectives do I want to try and hold that isn't that is in addition to what I'm currently holding, okay? And then what threat do I need to neutralize of my opponents? And that doesn't have to be killing. So once I've killed that unit I need to, and the first thing I'm going to be doing is setting my movement phase up to kill that unit, whether it's in shooting, charging. I'm then going to move my models that need to get on those objectives to hold me that 1 extra. And then finally it's going to be, how do I go about dealing with a threat? Oh, he's got a Mortarion over there, or he's got those Deathwing Terminators. How do I deal with those Deathwing Terminators that are on the table? Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, is I'm just going to put a whole 10-man guardsman squad in front of them, an inch away, or just over an inch, so he literally cannot move that unit at all. I'm going, cool. Yeah, we're going to stand here like a human shield for the rest of the army to give us another turn. So that's a threat I've neutralized, but I don't need to kill those Deathwing. I just need to hold them up. I just need to stop them from doing what they want to do, which is get into the center of the table, okay? So that's a great question. So some people are asking here, how do I generate a game plan? We're going to go on to that, so don't worry. That's coming up next. Somebody said here, I don't know how to counter Psychic. I've got some really good, tactics for you later on when we get into the Psychic phase. So yeah, we're going to cover some of that in a bit. How to make a narrative-based army reasonably competitive. And the thing is, competitive play seeps into all the other sort of forms of the game, right? People will just take, the optimal amount of models, like 5 Eradicators, for example. Maybe they just picked up that Get Started box or the Indomitors box and picked up a couple of those and, put 5 Eradicators on the table, which is very efficient and very effective. And it does seep into some of the maybe more narrative games. So I think having an appreciation of it really allows you to go, let's do a narrative game. And you bring in salamanders, so I'm expecting some aggressors, I'm expecting some flamey stuff, some melter stuff, that's cool. So how can I also bring a narrative-based Blood Angel army? Well, Sanguinary Guard are pretty narrative-based, Death Company are pretty narrative-based, but guess what? They also are pretty good, so I just need to make sure I've got the right unit numbers, the right warlord traits to help them, and actually we can throw down a really narrative game, but still have some punch to the list, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Okay, so let's get back to the lessons. Okay. Going to grab a quick drink while this loads. So next up we're going to cover building the right list for you. So this leads really nicely onto my last point there. Finding your play style. You might be thinking, what is a play style? Well, we're going to go over that. And a play style really is just, do you like a quick combat-based army? Do you like a shooting-based gunline gallery? What is it that you like? Do you like, what sort of phase of the game do you really enjoy or think is cool? Because if you can really enjoy that the most, or maybe that's a phase that you feel like you don't know that well at the moment, but you'd like to learn it to help your overall game plan. So maybe you play Tau at the moment, so you might be really good at target priority and shooting, but maybe you're not quite good at combat or psychic. Maybe pick up a combat or psychic army next, like Harlequins, and that will help take your skills to that next level. Okay, so what What aspects of the game do you currently enjoy? So do you like keeping your army at range, making them come to you and dealing with a threat one at a time? Do you like to play around with your opponent's, like points in their score? And, is that something that you like to do? Is be a little bit tricksy? Do you like to run your army forward and getting into combat? Do you like those cool tricks to stop your opponent from doing what they want to do? Or would you like a castle that moves up the table and each model protecting each other, like some sort of 300 Spartan style list, where every model is helping the person next to it in a tight formation that moves around the table doing what it needs to? And maybe that's one of those things you might be thinking, I really like that concept, I really like that idea. And I can give you some examples. Harlequins have got some really cool tricks to stop their opponent from doing what they want to do. Drakari, loads of witches in, Reaver jet bikes. They're really good at playing around your opponent and scoring where they can. Grabbing that objective here, putting an OBSEC unit onto that, making those surgical little strikes. Tau, keep that enemy at range, draw them in, get them a little bit closer, keep shooting at them, bring them a little bit closer, move back, keep shooting, move around them, move around their big threat, keep shooting. Blood Angels, let's just charge forward with chainswords and get stuck in. All of these things, no matter what level of the game you're at, they're cool. We want to play to that narrative or the theme of the army, because Games Workshop are doing a great job to really combine what's fairly decent in your army with what's really thematic. And when we bring those two things together, you've got a really thematic, lore-based army that looks awesome and also performs well, and that's perfect. So what's your favourite? Let me know. 1 to 5, what is your favourite? Is it combat, shooting? Let me know. Because this can really help you pick a new army. Maybe it helps you build a list that you're going to find enjoyable to play. And potentially, help improve your skill set that you need to improve on or learn, okay? So let me know in the chat, what is it that you currently enjoy and where we can go from that? Because the different play styles start to look a little bit like this, and each of these are on a continuum, okay? So you've got one at one end and one at the other in their most extreme. So you've got durability at one side, and typically you've got mobility on the other. Now there are some exceptions to the rule, but typically when we look at the most durable units in the game, they're real slow. So let's take something durable like Deathwing Terminators. Deathwing Terminators only move 5 inches. They can't advance in charge, and the only mobility that they have is Deep Strike. And if they can't come down where they want to, then they're going to be stuck on the table, they're going to be foot slogging it up there, and they're not going to do anything, okay? But if you look at the most mobile units in the game, sometimes they're really, really squishy, okay? And they just die so fast. So let's take Eldar jet bikes. Really quick, they can move 22 inches a turn, still fire their guns, but will die like a wet paper bag. It'll literally get destroyed that quickly. So if you put them in the wrong place, it's dead. And I'm not quite sure what the Mercury's closest planet to the sun, I'm not quite sure what they are. But anyway, I just thought, I have no clue why they're doing that, by the way, so apologies about that. I probably forgot to. I was so worried about getting my icons right that I obviously forgot to take out those little elements there. So apologies, or sorry for any confusion about the Mercury, or despite being red, Mars is actually a cold place. There may be some 40k references in there, but it's not really where I'm going with it. So then we've got defensive versus aggressive. So you've got defensive armies, like for example, Custodes are really defensive, they've got their big shields, they've got good armor, they can hurricane intervene, they've got objectives secured, versus an aggressive army like Harlequins, okay, that want to run, or Sisters of Battle that can run forward with their Repentia with big chainswords or combat weapons, okay. You've then got shooting versus combat, so typically an army will maybe excel in the shooting phase, and things like Guard and Tau really excel in the shooting phase, but less so in combat. And then you've got other armies that just don't really do any shooting at all, maybe like Demons, for example. Hardly any shooting, some sort of my Blood Angel list, I barely even shoot a gun, it's all done in combat. And then finally, you've got board control or versus surgical strikes. You've got that board control. This is where I am, this is where I'm staying, these are the objectives that I'm holding, and you're not going to move me off them. Or you've got those surgical strikes. I can see you're weak there, I'm going to target you, I'm going in, and I'm going to remove you off the table. Okay, that's more of a surgical strike. And if we look at, for example, the custodes here, they play to those core essences. Okay, so they like to, for example, keep their enemy at range, dealing with one at a time because they've only got minimal models to do it. They've only got so many actions in their army to achieve anything. It's a castle that moves up the table, protects one another by heroically intervening, overwatch, auspex scan, whatever it is. It's durable, defensive, small model count. It's got lots of board control because it can sit on 2 objectives and not be moved. And it's got good shooting and good combat. Whereas when we compare that to the Sisters of Battle, the Sisters of Battle are completely the opposite, and especially in the list that I run. They run forward, they like to get into combat, they've got tricks to stop their opponent from doing what they want to do. They're mobile, they're aggressive, they've got a larger model count. They can make those surgical strikes, but they don't need to worry if they lose that unit in return. And they're mainly combat with a little bit of shooting, okay? Especially in my list anyway. So again, what we've got here is these play styles, and this is going to really dictate how we build out the army, and we're going to go into that next. So when we start to actually look at a list, these are the different, we go from left to right here. First of all, as we pick that army, next up we need to pick a play style, okay? So for example, Drakari could be really durable with grotesques in Rax in Talos, or it could be super surgical strike-like in mobility with lots of witches and get aggressive in combat, or it could be a more mobile gun line with Ravagers in Cabalites in Venoms and things like that. So actually that army can play in lots of different play styles, but you need to pick one, because if you try to do all of them, you're not going to achieve anything. Your army won't really function how you want it to, and it's not going to play how you want it to, okay? And that's sometimes where we can get drawn into, but I want a bit of that for this, and actually it just doesn't work. It's going against what your army's trying to do. If I was to put, for example, I don't know, a Land Raider into my Blood Angels, or a Repulsor Executioner into my Blood Angels, I would find it really ineffective because it doesn't get buffed by any of my army. It's not even thematic. I've just put down a big hunk of 300 points of tank to try and shoot my opponent off the table, but actually it's not thematic, it's not narrative based, and it's not even good. So you want to sort of move that to one side. You need to pick a playstyle. Then what we need to go through is, once you've picked that playstyle, you really need to analyze your army. Okay, so you need to really read through that book. You need to sit and think and divulge and go over everything. You need to categorize all your different units. You need to look for all those specific combinations. What warlord traits, relics, powers help those units that you've identified as a core unit. Once you've done that, you've got a whole list of everything, and I teach this on the Academy in a lot more detail. Then you just lean into that. Okay, and what I mean by leaning in is you completely immerse yourself with that play style and theme. So Blood Angels, everything's got a jump pack in my army because there's lots of abilities and extra buff for jump pack units, and there's lots of buffs for and abilities for combat. So guess what? All of my units have a jump pack, and they have a chainsword or power weapon or thunderhammer. That's it. I don't do anything else. It's just super quick, super fun to play, looks awesome, love it. Harlequins, what are they great at? They're great at combat. So again, I don't take any guns, just take combat weapons. They're brilliant at it, so why bother with anything else? You could just go on for so many different reasons here, like the Ultramarine army. Gravis armor works really well with those Ultramarines, those aggressors shooting for each other, overwatching, playing in all phases of the game, being that shield for one another, heroically intervening, getting that OBSEC, standing in that brick wall of Ultramarines that can redeploy and have some tactical flexibility. They can take a charge, they can take a hit, they can fall back, they can shoot. It's all thought about. And you lean into their rules, you lean into their core mechanic. You then need to go about justifying everything. So you need to look at the strengths and weaknesses of what that army can do on that list in particular. So once you've written your list, you've leaned in, you've written your list, you now need to justify everything. Why are you taking a Talon Master? Why are you taking Dante? Why are you taking a Chief Librarian and not a normal one? Why are you taking a Librarian over a Chaplain? What does a Librarian give you but the Chaplain doesn't? If you don't have an answer for those things, then it's probably not good enough to stay in your list, okay? If you love a model and you're like, okay, ruler core is going in, like this Talon Master I've made, ruler core is in. Cool, well guess what? I'm gonna build an army to make my cool thing work. That's fine. But the rest needs to be justified, okay? Then you need to play test. You need to get your army on the table. You need to put it through its paces, and you need to see where it falls down. And without just changing your list depending on who you play, so it doesn't matter who you're playing up against next. You don't change your list because you know you're playing knights next time, because you've organised that pickup game. You don't put 12 aggressors in your list to be that guy. You've got to think, right, okay, I'm going to run my current list exactly as it is into those knights, and then what you're going to do is think critically about what is it that you can do if it went really badly. Maybe you do need some anti-tanks. How much do you need? So you put that in, that little one thing, you change that one thing. Again, justify everything. Maybe what's in your list at the moment that's not performing very well consistently. What's not doing its job that you thought it was going to do. Take it out, put something else in. So maybe you're up against orcs next. Okay, well maybe those eradicators aren't going to do much, but they still serve a purpose for another match. Okay, so now you need to make the rest of the army be able to kill some horde, okay? So let's have a little look at, this trifactor that I spoke about. When we're looking at these units, each unit has rules, and this is the unit's rules that it's good at, or whether it's combat, any special buffs or abilities. Then we've got how well does it play the mission. So Mortarion, for example, his rules are incredible, okay? His rules are unbelievable, but he's absolutely terrible at playing the mission. He can only be in one place. Whoever brings Mortarion to the table at his points is putting a quarter of their army on one objective. But there's 6 objectives in this game normally. There's anywhere from 4 to 6. So maybe Mortarion does okay in a 4 objective game, but maybe not so well in a 6. And then as long as you focus on all the other army, the rest of it, wherever Mortarion isn't, and you whittle that down, because you can now bring your whole army to bear on that one section of his army and leave Mortarion alone, and just keep him busy, then it's going to be okay. And then finally we've got the cost of that model as well, or unit. And that's something that we need to consider when we're justifying everything. Do I like its rules? Do I like the way it plays its mission? And looking at those two, are those points appropriate for what I want it to do? If not, get rid of it, put it something else in that you do feel like is the right cost. And cost isn't just its points, it's how many stratagems it needs, it's how many powers it needs from special things to make it work. Like, for example, there's units in Eldar that really need 3 or 4 psychic powers for it to do its thing, to make its points valuable. How many stratagems do you need to use on it to make it good? These are all different things that you need to consider, obviously. Its total cost, the cost of your resources. And then when you're doing your SWOT analysis, this is an example of my Blood Angel SWOT analysis. You can see here, I've gone through the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities that it has, the threats that can, really impact the Blood Angels. And if you look at each of those columns, it's got great combat, but if it fails its charge or my opponent has great overwatch, I'm still in trouble. But maybe some of the opportunities I have there is I can get a +1 because I'm a Blood Angel chapter. Or maybe I can, use a stratagem, or I can use suppressors to turn off overwatch. Okay, so how can I help myself with those charges? By using +1s, ignoring modifiers. There's a relic there, Icon of the Angel, that gives me the ability to re-roll the dice, or a relic to take a jump pack or a standard bearer that improves my movement. So actually that gives me 2 inches back in my movement phase to help me make those charges. And this is absolutely everything that you need to consider. So for example, the Sanguinary Guard have got great AP weapons. So if I'm going up against demons or harlequins, I don't care what my AP is because they've got an invulnerable save. So what's my opportunity? Well, I can put a librarian in with null zone. I can turn off their invulnerable save, and then I can send the Sanguinary Guard in. So they don't get any armor or invulnerable save, and I literally destroy that unit. So then threats. Most of their weapons are damage 2. So if they've got an inbuilt ability that ignores damage 1, I'm going to also need some damage 3 in my list, otherwise I'm not going to do anything. So you can see what I'm doing here. I'm really thinking carefully about what does this army do and where do I want it to go. So again, We're going to quickly stop for just a couple of questions before we move on. So guys, let me know if you're finding this useful, if you're finding it helpful. I really want to find out from you, are we learning things? Maybe what's one thing that you've really learned so far that's been a good eye-opening moment, or something you've never even considered before? Let me know. Loads of questions coming in. Yeah, loads and loads of comments, questions. This is awesome. We've still got loads of people watching, which is awesome. Again, if you're enjoying it, please give the video a like. Like I said, I'd love to hit that 200. That would be absolutely brilliant. Yeah, so any questions whatsoever, please do pop them in. Philip said here, how can you identify traps? Example, if you think something makes a unit durable, but actually it does not. So again, that's where playtesting really comes in. Playtesting is going to be your best friend, all right? Sometimes you actually need to understand what exactly that army's really doing for you, or that unit's doing for your army, and does it even fit into your playstyle? Because if you've just put a big durable unit into the middle of your army, but actually the rest of it's mobile, it's going to be sat there at the back doing nothing. It can't keep up. If you've got a really fast army but your characters are super slow, then again, it's not working. You've put durability in some of them where it doesn't need to be. So again, keep analyzing that all the time, all right? We've got Sam Rowland in the chat. He's actually one of our students. He said SWAT is really important, and also the justifications. I think sometimes not enough thought is given on how a unit works and something that's going to affect the overall playstyle. So every single week what I do with the guys on the academy is I basically assess and give them feedback on their list, okay? But I don't just, it's not just a free-for-all of people putting in list ideas. What I get all the students to do, and if you do decide to join us in the future, is you watch the module, and I've got a dedicated module in 4 different parts about writing an army list, and all this stuff I've mentioned, I go into a lot more detail. And basically, you then have to fill out your homework. Your homework sheet is you're putting your list in, then justifying everything. And then I go back in and I look for your justification. I give you 3 things to improve on, and we refine your list all the time, because I'm constantly playing 40k, and I'm really lucky to do that, but I can hopefully help you. So if you do have these burning questions like, what warlord trait would work best on this unit, I can help you. I can help you make that decision faster, so you don't have to go through all the rigorous playtesting necessarily. We can get you up to speed with a really good narrative-based list, which is also competitive. So then when you do get to the table, you're like, cool, yeah, I know what I'm doing here. I know what I'm doing with this unit. I've got a plan of attack for it, so that's brilliant. Yeah. Yep, some great questions in here as well. Some really great questions. Tony said, can you play test against yourself effectively? You can certainly do that. You can practice deployment, you can practice how much weapons or how many shots you need in order to achieve this certain thing that you're trying to do. You could set 2 armies up, you could just go through turn 1, okay, where would I move? How would I deploy this army? What would I, because sometimes thinking from your opponent's point of view and actually playtesting yourself is a really good way of doing this. You can get your models down and go, okay, so if I was using this army, what would I want this unit of Deathwing Knights to do? Well, I want them to move into the center of the table. I want them to get aggressive. I want them to be there. So actually, if I can expect my opponent to do that, how am I going to play around it? Well, I'm going to move around the edges. I'm not going to get close to the center. I'm going to let him have it. I'm going to let him put his 10 Deathwing there, because there's no point trying to stop him, because I'm literally going to fail. So if he's in the middle of the table, maybe he's not on the objectives. And that's exactly kind of what you want to think about. And that's actually really, really good. So let's carry on. So we're going to move on to how to generate a game plan. We're going to look at building a solid game plan, and the 4 things that we need to consider when building out a game plan is the mission, and this is the primary and the secondaries. We then need to look at the table layout. We then need to look at the enemy's list or our opponent's army list, and then we need to look at your list. Okay, and how do all these things fit in together to generate you a really good game plan? So we're going to go over some examples. What do you need to consider? You need to consider how you're actually going to hold those primary objectives. Which ones you're going to be focusing on holding, because if there's 6 on the table, which 2 or 3 do you choose? How many do you choose to hold? Which objectives are you going to attack into to try and deny your opponent from getting their holds, to maybe stop them from holding more, or maybe to cut them back on their score? Which units are you going to try and do that with? And then what turn are you going to make your more aggressive moves? You're going to wait until turn 3 like I do with Blood Angels sometimes? Maybe even with the Harlequins, wait until turn 4, and turn 4 and 5, swamp the table if I'm going second. Or maybe it's turn 1, maybe I'm going in turn 1, I'm going in hard, because that's the only decision I've got to make, and if I don't make it now, my opponent's going to win. I've had plenty of those games as well. But you need to generate that game plan. So let's have a little look at this mission right here. This is priority target mission. So this is actually very similar to what we've got set up now. If this works. You can see we've got the table set up, it's roughly the same, but as we can see here, priority target, the objectives I put in a slightly different place. I'm going to just quickly move that now. So there's 5 objectives down at the moment, and there's 5 on the table. If you can't see the overhead very well, then just look at the picture. But what we're starting to assess here is you get 5 points if you just hold one of these objectives. Okay, so if you've got a unit of Dire Avengers still on this objective, by the time it comes to your turn, then you're going to score that 5 points. Okay, when you at the start of your command phase, from turn 2 onwards, you're going to get that 5 points. If you happen to have 2 objectives, so let's say you had another unit of 5 Dire Avengers on the other one, then also you're going to get another 5 points. But they've got to remember, you've got to stay alive for that time, and Dire Avengers are super squishy. And if you happen to hold more than your opponent at that time, when you get to your turn 2 or your turn 3, if you hold more than your opponent, you're going to get an additional 5 points. And this is the biggest mistake people make, is that they try and get too many objectives too early. The times in which you should be trying to get those extra 15 points is in turns 4 or turns 5. Do not try and get them turn 1 or 2. As a rule of thumb, just don't try and do it, because you're going to fail. You're going to stretch yourself too thin. You're going to push all your units out onto the objectives turn 1, and your opponent's going to move forward slightly and just completely decimate you off the table. And then when it comes to turn 2, you're not going to have anything left. Okay? Let your opponent make those mistakes. Let your opponent try and get a bit greedy. So don't get greedy. Just try and hold 2 objectives. And again, we can cover in more detail how to actually hold those objectives, but that's what you're going to do, is just try and hold 2. Even on a hold 2 and a hold 3, because guess what your opponent's going to do? They're going to overstretch themselves. Just focus on getting those 10 points, because when your opponent overstretches themselves, maybe turn 2, your first score is only 5 points, but they've overstretched themselves by now, trying to hold 3 objectives. Then what you can do is punish them so hard that what happens is you can actually prevent them from holding any at all. You can actually bring them down to just holding 1, but that's not enough to get their even 5 points. So depending on whether you're playing a hold 1 or a hold 2, that's something you need to consider. The next thing you need to consider is the terrain layout. So what's going to be blocking line of sight? Because if we've got ruins or buildings that are blocking line of sight, maybe we can look at taking certain secondaries, because if there's a secondary that's hiding, and you can just hide into that ruin and keep scoring that objective, brilliant. And when we go back to the mission, 2 things I forgot to mention is, where are the objectives? How far are those objectives in relative space to the terrain? Can you hide behind that terrain and still grab that objective, or are you going to have to use that unit out in the open to try and hold it? Are you going to have to, I don't know, look at your deployment as well? On this priority target, it's really easy for me to get an engage in all fronts, because this sort of back corner over here, I can actually just move out onto an area over here, and all of a sudden we're okay. We've got that ability to just move out there and get that engage. Whereas maybe if we're on a different deployment, we can't get engaged in all fronts, and actually we need to look at another one. Where are the objectives in terms of scoring, secondary points? So we're going to cover this in a bit more detail. What does your enemy offer that you need to think about? So the enemy here, Gene Stealer Cult. Well, I know there's a guy there that can stop my deep strike within 12 inches, so maybe Line Breaker or Deploy Scramblers isn't a good option against this army. Maybe because of all its ability to deep strike, I know that I'm going to pretty much have to zone out half the table, so I don't really want to have to go any more than that. And I know I'm going to have to sacrifice my least efficient units to make sure that I can keep them at arm's length, and to stop them from holding what they want to, or doing what they want to, or charging the units they want to. So I know I'm going to have to make some sacrifices against this army. But I also know it's not got much shooting. I know it can't shoot indirectly. I know that if there's any objectives in my deployment zone, as long as I'm smart and I zone out everything well, and I screen and I deploy well, then this army's not going to have a chance against me. But if I try and stretch myself, if I try and do too much, then it will find those little gaps in areas, and it will pop up from the shadows literally and completely annihilate my army. What can my list do? Well, this is my Eldar list. Well, I'm already thinking about, while we stand, we fight. I'm picking secondaries at the list stage. So I've got 3 units or my While We Stand, We Fight, my most expensive units are 2 of my Fire Prisms and a unit there of Shadow Spectres. So I can keep the Shadow Spectres in reserve until turn 3. So then my opponent's only got turns 4 and 5 to kill them. They're quite hard to kill, they're -1. I can put some defensive buffs on them. I can make my Fire Prisms sit at the back of the table and shoot through the one that's forward using a stratagem. I've got 2 units of small Shining Spears that can dart forward, be a screen, be a bit of a threat, bit of pressure. They can get me an engage on all fronts. I've got 4 units of Dire Avengers that I can double up onto 2 objectives. And then I can use my characters and that Wave Serpent to also sit on objectives. So I can put a character and 2 units on one objective. I can put my Wave Serpent and another unit on another objective. So therefore, I've got redundancy. So if they kill my unit of warriors, they're going to have to kill all the warriors and the characters to actually take me off that objective. And they probably won't have the firepower to do it. And then I've got those Banshees as well, which are great at just, clearing a unit off one of their objectives, because they're quick, they've got great movement, they can go in and move block. So I've got these tools in my list to play the secondaries. I can get While We Stand, We Fight. I can put units into raise banners or deploy scramblers, whatever I need to. And I've got that engaged. So before I even get to the table, I've got my 3 picks, and I can adjust them ever so slightly depending on the mission. So let's take a look at this retrieval mission. This is completely different. We've got 5 objectives. If I'm on the blue side, I've got 1 objective in my deployment zone that I know I can hide, or I know I can, for example, do there. But trying to get engaged on all fronts is quite difficult. So maybe, and I'm so close to the table in terms of those other the second line of objectives, which are just outside of my deployment zone. They're going to be quite hard to raise banners on if I'm against a really mobile, fast army. If I'm against a slow army, that's fine, I can raise a banner. But against a fast army, I can't use it, so deploy scramblers would be a better option. So there's all these things that I'm considering. Where are the firing lanes? Because I need to assess the table from a top-down position to go, okay, I need my unit set up here. This is where I need to fire into. I need to use those Fire Prisms so they can shoot my opponent off that one objective I know they're going to want to hold. I need to put myself in my opponent's shoes to really think about what I want to try and do. Scorched Earth, very similar. Okay, we've got a different deployment zone here. So unless I've got a fast unit that can move outside of 6 to get that deploy scramblers, maybe I'll have to put a unit in reserve. What turn am I going to bring them on? Okay, so there's all these things you have to consider. Because if you can't hold those two objectives because they're right out in the open, you can't use terrain to do it, because my opponent on the red side would just, shoot me off it, then how am I going to go about holding those objectives? So maybe I don't try, but that's okay. Maybe I just keep my opponent from holding those. Maybe every time they put a unit down of, I don't know, Terminators or something, or a unit of bikes on an objective in the middle, I just move out a unit of OBSEC to take it off him. I don't need to kill him, I just need to take it off him. So any questions on that? On any of that stuff we've covered so far? Is that starting to help you think a little bit about how you're generating a game plan? So any questions on generating a game plan, please pop it in. We've got a question here. How about a game where you need to hold 2 to get 5 points? Again, like I said, try to just get those 2 objectives. Don't overstretch yourself, okay? Now, we're going to move on in a minute to the next section, where we're going to start to look at some of the, how do we generate and keep the flow and tempo of the game. Russell said, can you slow down a touch, please? Well, you'll be able to access all of this again. I'm still on my other camera. You'll still be able to get access to all of this again, and maybe, rewatch some of these elements. And one of the clinics that we have on the Academy is called Pick Your Secondary. So every week what we do is I give you a mission, like this, what we've done here. I give you an army to play against, I give you the terrain that you're going to be playing on, and you need to come up with a game plan. So you need to tell me what secondaries you're going to pick and why you're going to pick them. And then what we do on our clinic, or myself or Joe, one of the other coaches, we're going to go live, and we're going to go through all of your answers, but we're going to tell you what our army can do. So we're going to say, right, the Eldar does this really well, it does that, it's really weak against this, if you try that, we'll catch you out with this. It's our job to catch you out in those lessons, so that when you get to the table, when you go to those pickup games, or you get to the tournament, you're like, cool, Steve, Joe, the guys at VT, they've told me everything I need to know about Harlequins, I know all their tricks, I know what secondaries I pick against them, I know how to play against them, and that's our job, is to help you understand a lot more about building a game plan. And we go through each and every single mission so that you get a really good ability to actually go through those, okay? So hopefully that helps in a little bit more detail. Somebody's asked a question here, how do you adapt your plan when a key unit dies, even if you have redundancies? Well, I think one of the things you have to remember is, I'm only going to let a key unit of mine die when I want it to, okay? So I'm happy to forego that unit when I'm willing to, okay? And again, that comes down to analysing threats, analysing threat ranges, analysing what unit's going to hurt my key valuable unit, and then me coming up with a game plan of how I keep it alive, okay? That's what you need to consider. Only let your key units die when you want to, and then that way you don't need to worry about it, all right? So Alberto said, it said, don't you think Horde or MSUs need to get aggressive on enemy objectives as soon as possible? Not necessarily. It really depends. We're going to cover game tempo next in game flow, okay? And we're going to cover some of those different aspects. Okay, controlling the tempo of the game. The tempo is how fast the game happens. A fast game isn't how long it takes in time, it's nothing to do with that. It's not how long, or it's not how quickly you can finish the game. Game tempo, having a fast game, is something more in terms of how quickly is your army dying or killing in turn 1, in turn 2. So is most of the action, is 80% of the action happening in turns 1, 2 and 3? Or A slow tempo would be most of the action happening in turns 3, 4, and 5, okay? Or towards potentially 4 and 5 rather than 1, 2, 3. So it's your job to maintain and set the tempo. So I've got some really good examples we're going to cover today, and I'm going to put you in the hot seat, and then I'm going to give you some homework tasks as well. If you really want to take your learnings to that next level and see how it's done, I've got some really good examples lined up for you for some games you can watch and understand a little bit more about what was happening. So why is controlling the game tempo important? Well, it allows you to dictate the pace. It allows you to lose your units when you want to. It allows you to kill the units when you want to. It allows you to keep the scoreboard the way and in your favour. So how can you manage the scoreboard by managing the game tempo so you actually win the game at the very end, okay? How do you go about controlling it? Well, again, it's, do you want to play aggressive? Do you want to keep away from your army, your opponent's army? How close do you want to get to them? What guns of theirs do you want to bring in range? How many charges do you want to make? Do you want to make just the 1? Do you want to make 3? Do you want to make 5? How many units do you want to put out in the open to shoot? These are all things that can, control and speed up or slow down a game. How many units are you willing to lose? How many units do you want to put in tactical reserve? How long do you want to keep them in tactical reserve for? When should you, sorry for the typo there, but when should you control the tempo? Well, you should try and control it in every game. You want your opponent to play your game of Warhammer and not play theirs, all right? Who should control the tempo? Well, ideally it should be you, because if it's your opponent, you're going to struggle. If you play against me, I'm instantly going to try and control the tempo. You need to do something to disrupt what I want to do. You need to force me to do something else. And as soon as you do that, you're going to start winning that game. And the question you want to ask yourself is, do you want to go full throttle at your opponent? Or do you want your opponent to come to you? And this is dictated even when you start picking secondaries. So I'm going to give you the scenario here. You're up against my Sisters of Battle army. Okay, and this is a dreaded list. There's a couple of things missing from this picture, but I've basically got 3 units of Battle Sisters, 3 units of Zeraphins, the fast, hard-hitting combat units. I've got 3 units of Repentia, 2 Rhinos, and 2 multi-melter units with some characters that are there for support. Okay, so that is your scenario. This is the army that you're up against. So you've got 6 hard-hitting combat units in Rhinos, which move fast. I can advance in charge with some of these units. I've got 3 units of jump pack units that can again move 12 in charge. I've got Celestine to give all my army invulnerable saves. This is what you're up against, okay? Just imagine next game you're up against this. This is the mission you're playing. You've got to hold 2 and hold 3 objectives, okay? How are you going to do that? What objectives, what secondary objectives are you going to take on this mission? You're on one side, I'm on the other. There's a big gap between us. There's 24 inches between us. I've got 3 objectives my side, you've got 3 objectives your side. What secondaries are you going to take and why? Pop it in the comments below. What 3 secondaries are you going to pick? And when you can start to control the tempo, you can really start to manipulate the game. This was a recent turn summary from a game that me and Joe played. It's going to be on VT TV once I've edited it. And all the time I'm looking at the scoreboard. All the time I keep a whiteboard of the scores. How many times am I going to let him hold 2 objectives? How many times am I going to let him hold 3? How many times am I going to let him hold more? How many times am I going to try and stop him from holding a tool? How many domination points am I going to let him get? How many, whatever it might be, what am I going to let him do? How many of his wild stands am I going to try and, deny him from? And therefore, as the game goes through, each turn, I'm assessing, I'm reassessing. Do I need to push? Do I need to make an extreme play here? Or can I just sit back and hold? So that is how you try to keep an eye on the score and how you can use the tempo of the game in your favour, all right? So that's just an example of the score. So let's go back to our scenario. You've got 3 secondaries to pick with your army against me, against my sister's army, okay? My sisters are very aggressive, hit hard, and they're extremely effective. So there was this one game, and you can watch this game back. I'm up against the Custodes. Joe's playing his Custodes army, and at the secondary stage, he goes for Assassinate, because I have, I think, 4 to 5 characters, which gives him easily, if he does that, a good 15 points. He went for Raise the Banners, because he's got 3 objectives on his side, and he went for Grind Them Down. I've got lots and lots and lots of small little units, whereas he's got big blocks of units. You know, Custodes, they don't die very quickly, they're extremely durable. Now, as a general, what I need to do is I need to sit, before I pick my own secondaries, I need to predict what Joe's going to take. So I did that. I know my list gives up Assassinate, I know my list gives up Grind Them Down. So I can predict that. That's information I'm now going to use against Joe. I'm going to use my greatest weakness as my biggest strength. And that is now knowing what Joe's going to do and what Joe's going to pick against me. So I go for Engage in all fronts. All I need to do is hide a unit in one of those ruins in the corner, something like that. Super simple. I know he's got a very short range, so as long as I put that unit against one of his combat units that needs to come out and get them to move in charge, and providing I keep them 18 inches away with their 6-inch move and their 12-inch charge range as a maximum, he's not going to be able to get to that unit. So I'm going to be able to get that Engage in all fronts. And I don't even need to get it turn 1. I only am going to ever try and get it in 1 quarter. I'm never going to try and get it in all 4. I'm just going to try and get it in the 1. But I'm not going to do it turn 1. I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait a little bit. Because if I go for Raise the Banners, which I know he'll go for, so I'm raising banners, he's raising banners. That's fine. We've got 3 each. I'm also going to go for While We Stand, We Fight. If I keep my 3 big units alive, and I don't play with them, I keep them at the back playing KG, he has to come and get them off me. Because if he sits on his 3 and I sit on my 3, even if I don't try and get an Engage in all fronts, I'm going to win that game. Because he's not going to get Grind Them Down, he's not going to get Assassinate, and he's not going to deny me those 15 points that he has to for While We Stand, We Fight. Because otherwise, he gets 10 for each turn, so he scores 40 on the primary, I score 40 on the primary. He's going to get 0 for Assassinate, and I'll get 0 for Engage if I don't even try, because I don't have to yet. He'll get 15 for banners, I'll get 15 for banners, and I'll get 15 for While We Stand, We Fight, but he will get 0 for Grind Them Down. And that's really important. I'm forcing Joe to come to me. I'm forcing Joe to make a mistake. And then Joe didn't realise this until it was too late. And you can watch this exact game back, because my Sisters of Battle do not want to play into Custodes. They shut me down on every single level. They've got better OBSEC, they can turn off my rerolls, they can get, they can turn off all my modifiers, they can just turn off everything completely that helps me kill them. And I could not play aggressively, so I had to set the tempo, which was I'm going to slow it down. I need all my units alive towards the end, and actually it got really, really exciting. It was one of the closest games of 40k I've ever played, and it is an incredible game to watch, and that is the Nopen, the Las Vegas Nopen game on our stream, on our YouTube channel, which is Sisters versus Custodes. And I would love to know in the comments, when you go and watch it, I would love you just to comment on that video to say, I came from the masterclass. So then I know how many of you are going back and watching and doing your homework. We did have some tech issues at the start. So the first 10 minutes, the audio is a little bit, we lost one of our connections. But anyway, that battle report is incredible. And then the second one is Blood Angels versus Sisters. The Blood Angels went for Engage in all fronts. He went for Oaths of Moments, you have to be in the middle of the table. And he also went for the mission, which was, it was battle lines, so there's only 4 objectives on the table and you have to hold the center ones. And Joe knew if he didn't come at me and take those secondaries, again I'm going to win that game, because I'm going to take the table off him if he's not careful. And I knew Joe was going to play aggressively because he had to, because he played KG in the game before and it did not go well for him. He played too defensively, and he's got a much faster army. He needs to use that aggression, and I knew he was going to do it. So I deployed the scramblers, because I know he wants to come out of his deployment zone. So then I can drop back into his. So I put a unit of my battle sisters into deep strike, ready just to come down and deploy that scrambler. I went for engage all fronts because I knew there was 2 big objectives in the centre of the table. I'm going to have to try and hold one of them anyway, so I may as well try and get engage in all fronts. And then in order for that Blood Angel list to actually work, he's going to have to use his characters, so I have to take Assassinate. The only way Joe could have won that game, potentially, is if he just sat in his own deployment zone, but he would have had to go for While We Stand We Fight, and he would have had to go for maybe raise the banners or whatever it was, just to score him something and just hold back. But because as soon as the secondaries were announced, he underestimated potentially what the power of the sisters could do against him in that matchup, and actually he needed to play cagey. So it's kind of like the roles were reversed. Although he had a really aggressive, powerful army, mine was actually really effective and efficient at killing him. And that was just one little mistake he made at analysing that, which led to that defeat. So we're going to go over to mastering the phases of the game. So we're going to start off, we're going to go to the overhead cam, and we're going to cover some of the most, I'm going to take you through some practical demonstrations now, okay? Some people said, I watched it during the Nopen, does that count? Go back and watch it, because you're going to really learn so much more about what I'm actually doing. Honestly, go back in, watch it again, see the plays I'm making, try to think about what I'm trying to do here. Okay? So we're going to head over to the overhead, and then we're going to go over the deployment. So here we go. We've got the Dark Angels on one side, and what I've done here is I've just basically put the models on top of the buildings just so you can kind of see where they are. I don't know why all these cameras are being mirrored, so I'm going to have to try and get rid of that for some reason. This is not behaving how I want it to. Okay, so we've got on the right hand side here, we've got the Talonmaster, we've got some Blade Guard, and then we've also got some Deathwing Knights here. We've got 2 units of 5, we've got an Apothecary, that's all in Deep Strike. We've got 2 units of Outriders just on the other side of this building. If I move that out of the way, you'll be able to see them. We've got a unit of Intercessors. Now, although they're on the top here, they're actually counting as below. I've only put them on there so you can see from the overhead where they are, okay? So this is what we're up against. The mission is 6 objectives. There's 1 in each player's deployment zone. And then we've got, so that's the Dark Angels army. This is mine over here. And what I've just started off doing, I'm going to move these Dire Avengers off this objective. So the first thing that I need to do is pick some secondaries, right? I've already put down my Harlequins because it was going to take me too long to do that whilst trying to talk to you. So, objectives for me, I know his army's fast, I know he wants to get out of this deployment zone, and I know my army's really, really quick. So therefore, I'm going to take scramblers. I can't take banners. And the reason why I can't take banners when I'm building my game plan is because I know his bikes can pre-game move, and if he goes first, this player can just put their bikes on that objective and I'll never be able to raise that banner. He'll then be able to do the other side over here, and therefore that is 2 banners I cannot raise turn 1. And he doesn't even need to go that far. He could literally just move them to get within 3 of that objective, like that and like that turn 1. He could put plenty of shots on me, and then in order for me to kill him, I need to come out into the open. And therefore the next wave of Talonmaster can move over with the other bikes and just shoot me out in the, because I'm out in the open now. So I can't take banners. I'd be doing exactly the worst thing for me. So banners, if I took banners, would lose me the game. I'm helping him deny me, and I'm helping him put me in a position where I don't want to be. So I need to think about scramblers, because his army's going to come forward, it's going to try and take me off these objectives, so I can snip into his backfield. Remember, the Terminators are in deep strike. So they're in deep strike at the moment. So scramblers is going to be an option. And when we're picking secondaries, I'm already predicting what's going to happen. So that's in deep strike. We've then got the next secondary we can take is going to be, and this is tough, but it's probably going to be against this army while we stand we fight. Because while we stand we fight is my big units of bikes. I've got some Harlequin bikes over there, I've got some Shining Spears, and I've got my Shadow Spectres. My Shadow Spectres I can keep safe, and my bikes I can use, and I can just use them. I can use their mobility just to make sure they make those surgical strikes and keep them alive. So I can go for that. And then finally what I'm going to go for is engage in all fronts. So that's what I'm going to pick. Now, when it comes to deployment, I need to think about how am I going to deploy that scramble. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one unit of Dire Avengers, this unit here of Dire Avengers, I'm going to spend 1 CP and put them into tactical reserve. I've got the webway, so I can put them into, so they can come down anywhere, or I could move them on from a table edge. And if I do that, I can put 2 units of Dire Avengers into tactical reserve. But I know I've got this backfield objective I need to hold. So one of my units of Dire Avengers are going to just go at the back of this ruin, or back of this building here. But they don't need to be, when I'm placing this unit down, I don't want to go any further than I have to. So if I measure 3 inches away from this objective, I can actually be on this side of the barricades and still hold it. So I don't need to put my model right next to it. I can sit at the back because I can move 7 inches to go and hold it. And that just means that there's no way my opponent's going to be able to get hold of those Dire Avengers. So that unit will go down there. My Harlequins are taking advantage of the obscuring building here, being wholly behind it, and also they're really defensive. They've got -1 to wound, -6 inch range, so they're actually quite good at being defensive against this opponent's army. My Shadow Spectres here, now I've got to think about my threat range. So when I'm in deployment, they can move 12, they can automatically advance 6, and then they've got a 24 inch range gun. So their threat range is really, really good. So they don't need to be on the front line, because if I put them here on the front line, or even in the building here, if I put them in the building, this unit could move and charge me, and I don't want that. If I put them on the front line, then the unit of bikes can move forward, pre-game move, 16, they can then move again, and then they can charge me, so I don't want that either. So I'm going to put them right at the back. Now I'm completely outside of any chance these bikes can get me. Even if they pre-game move and move again, which gets them to be about here, he's not going to be able to make that charge, and he's not going to be able to shoot me. So my Shadow Spectres are going to go here. And this Shadow Spectre unit is key because they can keep my 2 objectives safe. And I'm going to make use of my movement phase with that automatic advance and still being able to shoot when I advance. I got to keep that. This unit I've analysed is my most valuable unit, not only because they're the most points, but because they're the most deadly against my opponent. Then I've got 2 units of 5 Banshees. Now these units cannot take a punch, so I'm going to keep them right in the centre, and they need to be really tight inside this area piece of terrain, so it forces the opponent to come right the way around here to be able to get that line of sight from the obscuring ruin. And again, this unit could stay there, or I could put them behind the ruin over here, so they're going to go in the ruin behind here, so they can just move out and reach onto that objective. So that means this unit can tuck right in, and I can keep this little unit safe. And this unit, they aren't going to do anything in this game. This isn't a matchup for them because the bikes are too durable, they're too tough for me to worry about. So I can't really use them for that, but I do have an option to play with these guys shortly. Then my Farses have got great mobility, they can just hang at the back, and again they're just going to go behind all these lines of troops. making them completely impossible to charge. So if my opponent wants to be able to get their big base into here, he's going to have to declare all these different units of troops. Now the other thing as well is, if he wants to come and kill these farseers and put his attacks on them, he's going to lose his units of bikes in return. So it's going to cost him a lot of CPs to move forward. And it's called a bait. I'm baiting my opponent to do it because I want him to use his 2 units of eradicate, his outriders, to come to here. He picks up one of my characters I don't really need that much, and then use all this unit to kill it and kill the whole squad off. And if I can do that both sides, great. I'm sacrificing 2 characters for 2 of his core units, which would be awesome. And if you notice with my models here, I've got a green squad, a pink squad, a blue squad, and a pink squad. What I haven't done is gone this way. I haven't gone greens, blues, pinks, and pinks again. I've gone greens, pinks, blues, pinks. So that means my models are closest. So when I'm making charges, it means my threat range isn't, so this unit here can move 8 in advance and then charge. So they can move 8, advance, let's say 4 inches, and they've got a 12-inch charge range. So they've got really good threat into that second objective. If I was to put them at the back, then all of a sudden, the back model's 8 inches only gets him there. So one squad could be there, but the other squad would be over here. So this way, I've actually got all my squads applying the same amount of pressure because it's from the front model we make our charges from. And then what we're going to do is look at where we're going to put our shining spears and shadow spectres. Okay, so I've analysed already that over here, this is a bit of a problem. Those infiltrators are a bit of a problem. They can just move out, stop me from doing this, prevent my deep strike or whatever. So actually, my shining spears are perfect at killing them. And he's got 2 units of bikes on this side and only 1 unit of bikes this side. So my unit, I know, of shining spears can take a punch from 1 unit, but they can't take a punch from 2 units. So I'm going to only go against the minimal amount of threat needed. But I know my weapons in a unit size of 5 is perfect for just killing that 5 units of infiltrators. And I can just be a bit of a lurking threat there. I don't need to move them out yet, I can wait. And that actually helps me when I want to move out, charge, and then use my charge phase, kill the unit, and then pile in just to get inside that objective. And I'm really resilient to shooting. So actually my opponent doesn't have too much shooting from this angle to actually catch me. And I know his blade guard won't be able to reach me because they won't have the movement. They can only move 6 and only move 12. So again, I'm making sure, I'm telling my opponent I'm staying 18 inches away from your blade guard, or you're going to have to make a double 12-inch charge to actually get me. So again, I can use this movement to get me my engage, clear off that threat unit that could, get him an engage or whatever, or keep me from, deploying a scrambler in the middle of the table. So that's something I can do there. Or what I can do is use this unit just to sit within 3 inches of this objective to hold it, but not go any further, because I'm really resilient against shooting attacks, but not against combat. And like I said, those bikes in combat don't kill me. 1 unit doesn't kill me, but 2 probably does. So he's going to have to send a bit more over to kill these shining spears. I can then also keep a Farseer or a Warlock just within 3 here, just behind, being protected, so he can also hold the objective. So that if the bikes do come in, I can overwatch, maybe whittle them down a little bit. I can also maybe put some units in here to hold it. So I'm doubling up how I'm going to try and hold this objective. So I can hold this one, and I'm going to really focus on holding this one. And I'm not going to give away this unit of bikes just yet. I'm going to keep them on the sideline, and they can kind of sit and wait to see what my opponent's going to do. So there's some of the things I'm considering when it comes to the deployments phase. So in terms of psychic, I don't know if you've noticed this, but my opponent's librarian has a range of 18 inches, okay? For his psychic powers that he wants to cast is 18 inches. Now, one thing that I've had to do is make sure that all of my character is right in the middle here. And this character can deny 24. So providing he is within the whole bubble is within 6 inches of his base, he is going to be able to deny anything that tries to target these characters. And if I was really smart, I would put a Farseer right in the middle here, because the Farseer can dominate the psychic phase. He can re-roll his deny test, so he can just sit right in the middle of those guys. And because again I've given them the right keywords by giving them the fly keyword, I'm making sure here that I don't have any problems when I come to move. So if my opponent wants to use his 18-inch range on me, he can't stay outside of 24 to use it. He has to use it on a unit that's inside of my deny range. So now we're starting to cover some of those more advanced phases of the game. So I'm constantly thinking about that. So again, we need to constantly think about how are we actually going to master this game, and that's just some of the things that I'm considering when we're playing, in terms of some of the phases of the game, whether it's using those heroic interventions, how am I going to use my shooting phase to deal with his most valuable units, what are the sort of game plan and strategies that I want to put in place to really make sure that I can do what I want to and force my opponent to do what I want to, okay? How do I, we mentioned about using these Banshees. I'm happy to give this unit away. So what I can do with this unit is move and advance them. They can move 8, they can advance 6 with a stratagem, then they can shoot and then move again. So actually what they can do is, if their movement is 8 inches, so they're starting here, their movement's 8, they can then move 6 inches with their advance. So I've moved a little bit too far there, but there's 8 inches. They can move 6 inches with their advance move. And then what they can do is shoot their pistols 12 inches, and then they can move with another stratagem another 7 inches, called Fire and Fade. So what I'm actually doing here is I'm not going to charge, because if I charge I die in return. I can't kill enough. But what I've done here is I've took this objective and I've completely blocked this space from these 2 units of Outriders that want to come and hit these lines. So if I go first, I can use this move, 2 CPs, and now I'm holding up his entire army. It's sat right here. That's all he can do. He can't put any pressure on my objective. So my other unit of Banshees can just move out like this. And if I've got a model there, or a unit of Harlequins here for example, and I keep my Farseer within 3 of that Harlequin unit, and then also within 3 of this objective, he cannot be shot until this unit's dead, until the troops that are dead that are in here, until this is dead. He's going to hold this objective for me because I'm going to take advantage of the lookout sir rule. And if my opponent doesn't deal with this unit of Banshees here, guess what I'm going to do next turn? Because he's going to shoot this unit and kill them. But if he doesn't kill this unit as well, so I'm forcing him to kill the Banshees. So he's going to have to move his Talon Master over here to try and kill these. And if he doesn't do that, guess what I'm going to do next turn? I'm going to move 8, I'm going to advance 6, and I'm going to Fire and Fade, and I'm going to put this unit here as well. And I'm just going to completely stop my opponent from doing what they want to do. So now the bikes have to move around here. In order to get into me, they have to move this way, because their base cannot go through here. So these are ways that I'm using. One of those things I said earlier is, what threat am I going to neutralize? I'm going to focus on just using my unit to do something really useful for me, okay? So these are little tricks that you've got up your sleeve that you might not even realize what they're for. So yes, Banshees are quite good in combat, but they don't have to do that. They can do other things for you. And if I can keep these bikes here for 2 turns, it means my Shadow Spectres can move over there, deal with these bikes, deal with this side of the table. My Shining Spears can move around, kill them, go over hill, kill this. The Terminator's going to have to drop in somewhere, yeah? And also, this unit then starts to zone out those Terminators, which, again, if you want to see how to do that, there's a lot more There's a lot more kind of tactics like that on the academy, and we go into real detail on how you can actually screen out an army from doing exactly what you want it to do, okay? So guys, I really hope you've enjoyed this so far. We're going to take a quick look at the academy. I'm going to show you some of these lessons in a little bit more detail, where you can find the next stages. If you're really enjoying this sort of stuff, then we can look at that in a bit more detail, and then we're going to cover your questions, okay? We're going to have plenty of time to cover any questions that you have. Okay, so the academy, like I said, it's designed modular, and think of it like a online university course but for Warhammer, okay? Our goal is to empower people, so we're going to help you combine new knowledge with application and skills, and really, immerse that together with experience. And that's kind of what we want to try and do, is empower you to make really good, gameplays, and really empower you to actually play the game. We want to make sure you enjoy it. So we want to get you the most out of your hobby. So get involved with the community, start creating friendships, really get the most out of your models, get excited about new rule releases, get excited about new models and know how to use them effectively. Or those models that are collecting dust on your shelf, how can you get them on the table and do really well with them? Because any army and any unit can be good in the right way. We bring people together, we create friendships, teammates, all part of our community. And we actually have an esports team for Vanguard Tactics. So if you want to play for us in terms of our team globally, you can certainly do that in the future. And then also we've got a really good positive attitude towards health, including mental, emotional, social and physical. And the academy itself is broken down into these core aspects. We've got the modules, and a module, what can you expect? Well, a module is going to focus on one element, so it could be list building, it could be game tempo, it could be scoreboard management. I'm going to show you some of the modules. And then in those modules are lessons. And in the lessons, they're kind of like today, but much shorter, about 20 to 30 minutes, and we go really deep on that topic. You can access this from your phone, an app, website, whatever it might be. You can get support at any time, so every week you can jump on our lives, ask the questions, ask them ahead of time, watch them back after. So any questions you ever have, we're going to make sure they're answered. We've got our clinics, which happen every week. We've got three clinics that happen every week. We've got a live Q&A. We've got our list clinic where we give you feedback on your list, and then we've got that game Pick Your Secondaries I spoke to you earlier about. We've got our VT community, which is on Facebook and Discord. You can join like-minded players, you can play on Discord with them, and our community is so helpful. They'll show you how to use Discord or Tabletop Simulator, maybe even meet up. We've had plenty of our students meet up when it's safe to do so and get games in with one another, and it's absolutely awesome. We've got a real good play testing mindset. We're not just trying to beat each other, we're trying to help everybody improve. And then also we hopefully will help you have a little bit more success, okay? And I'm sure if you dedicate and you're committed to just watching some of the videos, doing some of the tasks here and there, you will start to put this stuff into practice, and you will start to see you will just feel a lot more comfortable when you actually get to the table. This is some of the modules that are unlockable. You've got an introduction module, obviously, but you've got how to win at Warhammer, the 40k toolbox, master the phases of the game, and all of these modules right here are going to be renewed this year for 9th edition. Some of them are currently set for 8th edition, but actually the game theory that we talk about doesn't matter because the principles of the game are still the same. So you not only get the access to that, but you're also going to be constantly refreshed and renewed with new modules coming out. The module coming out at the end of this week is going to be about the foundations and fundamentals of the game, and that's something where we go through all of these phases of the game in a lot more detail. And I'm going to show you some of the advanced combat tactics and charging combat tactics next over on the academy there. So here we have this is actually what the academy looks like inside. There's 136 lessons that you can get access to. You've got the community, you've got the Discord. We also have great discounts for all of our students as well. So you get discounts on terrain, gaming mats, lots of different aspects. And then you've got all your modules down here on the left hand side. So let's say advanced tactics of the game. So we click on that module, And again, you've got when to base a model, and this is like an advanced combat tactic. We've got how to stop a unit from shooting and being shot at, how to work around and interrupting combat. So again, we can just click on that lesson. And these are all, if you sign up, depending on what you sign up with, whether it's you go monthly,
hey guys,
you
and welcome to this lesson.
You're going to get different access at different times. So the modules unlock as you go through it. Okay? And again, we've got basically a difference of
you go first with Calgar, maybe it's a wild stance fight, maybe it's a bit more valuable.
Short different lessons, and you need to try really go through, for example, how to avoid Overwatch. There's lots of different stuff. Anyway, I spoke too long about this already. I appreciate it was more than a minute. So let's go into your questions. So I'm going to be available for the next sort of 10 to 15 minutes. I appreciate I've ran over a little bit. So any questions you have, please drop them into the chat. So first of all, guys, massive thank you for all of you that have stayed, and you know you've stuck around with me for this long. Appreciate this was. Oh, sorry about that. Apparently the audio was drowning me out. Yeah, hopefully I've cancelled that now and I've stopped it. So again, all I was saying there is all of those different modules are there to help you. Those different lessons go really in detail with some of those different aspects. But I spoke for too long, so I'm here for the next 10 minutes or 15 to really answer your questions, anything that you have whatsoever. So please let me know what they are. If you have enjoyed today, please give this video a like. It's really difficult when you're presenting to just a camera in an empty studio. It's really difficult because I can't see if you're enjoying it, if you're happy, if you're sad, if you find it funny, interesting, whether I'm going too quick, go too slow. So if you did like it, please give me a like. It's my only way of knowing if you're actually enjoying this content and if you're finding it valuable. So Albert said here, I want to ask again about being aggressive with a Horde and or MSU. So it really depends on who you're playing, okay? I can't give you a one answer to that problem. So I would actually play, I've got like a Harlequin Horde army, which we saw here. I've got 40 Harlequins, I've got 10 Dire Avengers, 50 models, another 10 bikes, that's 60, another 10 Shadow Spectres, that's 70, 10 Howling Banshees, that's 80, some characters, about another 5, so looking at 85, 90. It depends. It really depends on who you're playing. If you can feel like you can swamp the table and stop them and slow them down from move blocking, then yeah, great. But if you're just going to move your army forward and get completely shot off the table, you need to analyse, what weapon profiles do they have? How many shots do they have? If you're going up against, for example, this Outrider list, which has got loads of shots, loads of attacks in combat, it's going to table you if you move too quickly. So again, you really need to consider what sort of weaponry is your opponent brought and how are you going to play around it. If they've got Eradicators, yeah, move up the table, fill it completely, because he's only going to kill 6 to 7 models a turn. And that's it. He doesn't have the tools to kill you. If he's got Aggressors, which are putting out lots of shots, don't put yourself out in the open. So I can't give you a one-size-fits-all approach in answer. People saying they love it. Is the Academy, so we're going to send you, if you were interested in the Academy, we're going to send you a link and you're going to get a trial period. So if you absolutely hate it, it's not a problem, you just cancel, okay? So we're going to send you a little link to see if you want to join the Academy. You get a set period of time for that trial, and if you like it, you don't do anything, you just keep it active, and then you'll be billed when that trial ends, okay? And honestly, the community is where all the value is in those weekly clinics. I can't tell you enough for that. So if you have enjoyed today, I know you're going to enjoy the Academy as well. So that's why we're giving you that trial period to see what it's like, because this is the only course out there in the world that's anything like the Academy, which is structured, moduled. I've really thought about, from my teaching background, how everything's layered in, what comes before what, and really helping everybody improve their game. And I want to be that interim between just reading the rules and playing the game. I want to be that thing that helps you navigate swiftly through that. Adam said here, thank you for the masterclass. I feel like I've learned a couple of where my biggest issues before the game even begins. We've got, that's awesome, Adam. I'm absolutely loving that. Table Chair Seat said, when you play your YouTube video battle reports, do you or Joe tailor your lists? We only tailor to make sure that they don't, like, we never want to put really, so in the game of 40k, there's sometimes like a rock, paper, scissors, okay? So, for example, Blood Angels absolutely destroy knights. Like, every single time, Blood Angels destroy knights. So you're probably never going to see Blood Angels versus knights on the channel. Because we can predict how that game's going to go already. It's just that super hard counter. So we do look at that slightly, and sometimes we throw down and we don't know how it's going to go, and it turns out, oh, that was actually a bad counter to that army. So we don't tailor, we use our competitive tournament lists that are well balanced, that we will use in other battle reports as well. So we don't tailor them based on the army we're playing. We just sometimes try to avoid it. Sam said, I pay the entry-level membership for the VT, so it's $45 a month if you stay on after the trial. And obviously that gets you access to all those videos, the community, the lessons, the clinics. And Sam says, I get a lot more value from it than my Netflix account. Oh, absolutely, yeah. David Lambert said, what teams did you play hockey on? As a Canadian plays hockey, England, I find the small world, isn't it funny? Yeah, so David, I used to play field hockey, and I used to play for my university at a good level, which is University of Bath, and then also I played for my hockey club as well for the first team. Xantos Ara said that vertical deployment tactics for separating units was golden. Rock solid lesson, Stephen. Thank you very much. No problem at all. Happy with that. Michael said, love the class. I know you said that efficiency for units should be to do one or more thing. Do you see a role for flyers in competitive lists? I only imagine flyers with transports. It's really difficult. I think obviously flyers can be a good threat. They can, prevent people from just hiding in backfield objectives. They can get really good reach. So they can be a good way to, deter your opponent from taking things like raise the banners by putting their weakest units upon weakest units behind terrain and just, holding objectives. The flyer can go in and get rid of those. I see flyers as that kind of preventing your opponent from, using their chaff units to hold objectives, and whilst getting you maybe an engage in all fronts because they've got great movement, so they can do those quite well. Tyler said, I have one big question. When your opponent is more units than you, how do you, where do you deploy your threat units? Well, this is where, leaning into books which have redeployment is awesome. Like, I love Ultramarines for that one reason. I get to redeploy. Eldar, Harlequins can all redeploy. If your threat is, for example, something that you have to deploy on the table, look at it. Can you hide it? If not, put it in tactical reserve. Can you put it in deep strike? Can you bring it on from a board edge? You don't have to just deploy it on the table, especially if you know you're going to be doing that. Cameron has said, I'm interested in the academy but live on the west coast of the US. Is the academy feasible with an 8-hour time difference? Absolutely. Most of our clinics are 4 o'clock. Okay, so I've tried to do that so that our Aussie friends can watch and also our US friends can watch. But also, the other thing as well is you can ask all of your questions prior. So on a Monday, the lesson clinics go in, and then we put the post in, and you can comment with what your question is or what army list you want reviewed. We have a cut-off time, 2 hours before that live. We then go live, deliver the lesson in the clinic, and then what you can do is watch that clinic back if you can't make it, and that's always updated on the academy. So you can watch literally all the list reviews we've ever done since we started doing them. So if you want to go back and watch all of those lists, because we're reviewing Orcs, Crimson Fist, Black Templars, Death Guard, whatever it is, you can go back and watch all of those list reviews as well, okay? And then the actual academy lessons, which are in the modules, like I showed you with the combat, then, basically what that means is you can get that anytime, okay? They're always there available for you to watch. Like I said, each module is time released. So if you sign up in month 1, you get month 1's worth of modules plus a couple of extra bonuses and so on and so forth. And this lesson as well will also be put on there. We've got another question here. Masterclass at some point, interview perhaps. So that was, I think the interview you're referring to is when I interviewed by Mini Wargaming by Dave. I heard you say something like the game is won and lost in the movement phase. Could you expand a bit more on this? If you're not moving your units correctly, you're not going to have the threats to get onto objectives. You can't plan ahead like I did with those Dire Avengers in deployment. I'm thinking ahead. Where do I want those Dire Avengers to be turn 1 to hold? Or, sorry, turn 2 to hold? Where do I want them to be turn 3? Can I use their movement to string out in the late game once I've dealt with all the threats, so then that unit of Dire Avengers can hold 2 objectives for me? How much do I need to move in advance to get them there? How do I use my pile-ins and consolidations to completely screen out an objective so my opponent has to declare a charge into me to take me off it? Because if they shoot me, they still won't be able to have a model on that objective. Those are the certain things. Tony said here, any tips to help me play faster? Like I said, sit and think before you play. Take 2 minutes in your command phase just to sit, think about what you're actually going to do. Sit and think, I'm going to put that unit there, I need to deal with that threat, I need to kill that unit, so how many units do I need to kill that? Probably that one and that one, okay, cool. Well, I need to keep my auras over there as well, so characters are going to shift that way. Okay, let's do it. So we're into the movement phase, and as soon as I'm moving, everything is super fast then. Move, 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 move. I know where I'm going. I shoot, 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 shoot in the right order. I'm already, when I'm moving my units, thinking this unit's got to shoot first because of its maximum threat range. And again, the module that's coming out on the Academy is going to cover this in so much more detail, okay? Which is going to be about those foundations of the game. But if you're trying to do too much, if you're not thinking about it, and you're just kind of moving a unit and not having a plan for it, you'll then sit and think, oh, what should I do next? And then you'll think, oh, I wish they weren't there, I wish they were somewhere else. And you'll be like, oh, well, I kind of shoot this unit, and then you'll go, oh, well, hang on a minute. I probably shouldn't have shot that unit because my opponent's removed those models, and now that unit's not in range. And these are the problems that people are having all the time because they're not taking that time to sit, slow down, and think. Because if you can get your plan up here first, you'll only do the necessary things. You don't need to move everything. Like my turn 1 with this Harlequin army, literally if I go to the overhead, all I might do is just move this unit here into there. I might only move them 6 inches, it's not going to take me long. And if his bikes are over here, the only thing I might do is, like I said, okay, I want to stop him from moving this bike unit, so I'll move 8, advance, shoot and just move block there, so I dealt with that threat. Okay, he's got 3 models on that objective, I've got 5, so I've stole that off him there, cool. What else am I going to do? Well, to deal with these 3 bikes here, the only thing I need to use is my unit of Shadow Spectres over there. They've got 24-inch range, so I'm just going to measure from the back guy to the back of the base. My back guy is going to move to there to get within 24. The rest of the unit move. They then shoot, kill that unit. I'm pretty happy. Like, I don't need to do any more than that. You know, move my character on this objective, get within 3. Nothing can threaten this character because the rest of the Harlequins are closer and he's within 3 of that character. Maybe I just do that 1 charge over there. That's me done. That was a 2-minute turn maximum. Nothing, it doesn't need to be more than that. You know, you don't have to move everything. These Harlequin bikes can just stay back there for another turn. They don't have to come forward yet. You know, I'm going to let him go through my 2 units of Banshees before once he's got through these and I'm up on the scoreboard and maybe he's starting to break through, he knows if he comes any closer I'm going to shoot him. So these are the things that you've got to think about, all right? Guys, I'm going to have to leave that there. I need to get home to the family and get some dinner, so I will take one more question. Plight has said here, my combat-focused Death Guard army got obliterated in 2 turns by Imperial Knights. What can I do against an opponent that is so fast and I can't hide to shoot so hard? Well, again, this is where you need to be really using your tactical reserves, okay? Use your tactical reserves make sure that you're, maybe it's a list construction, maybe rhinos could be a good way. If you're having your units in rhinos, those Death Guard Marines, which are so vital to your army, then he has to shoot the rhino and then all your OBSEC models can pop out. And knights can only shoot at one thing, okay? So they'll shoot at one thing and that's it. So if they can only declare against a rhino, yes, they kill it, but then the valuable stuff can pop out. Rather than him just going, I'm going to shoot that, I'm going to shoot that. And you lose your valuable units. You don't necessarily need to kill knights, you need to move block them, slow them down, you need to bracket them because they struggle to get any rerolls. So as soon as they're hitting on 5s, because they're bracketed, you can kind of leave them alone. They don't have OBSEC, so you can just put OBSEC models onto those objectives. But yeah, that's what you need to be doing. Okay, so guys, thank you so much. I'm going to email you the link to this slide, and also the slides and the video will go into the Academy, and then I'll send you that link if you'd like to donate for Team Vanguard Tactics through Movember if you found this useful whatsoever. I'd really appreciate that. Unfortunately, the super chat wasn't enabled. Maybe it's because it's an unlisted video. I'll figure out why that was. But again, guys, thank you so much for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed it. I hope you guys have as well. We only hit a 71 likes, which is a shame we didn't get the 200. But like I said, if you did like it, please give this lesson just a like. And if this is your first time viewing us, subscribe, okay? It would, again, you're subscribing, commenting, liking, it really, really helps myself and the other guys here at VT. It keeps the channel growing. And if you can't and don't want to support, us on the Academy, then yeah, just literally liking and commenting is great as well. And if you love what we're doing, we have a podcast. So if you like podcasts, we've got the competitive 40k podcast where we talk about all different aspects of the game, and it's our goal to help improve your knowledge on some of the new books that come out. And recently, Games Workshop have made us previewers, so we'll be getting all the new releases early, so we can hopefully show you guys in a little bit more detail ahead of time, so you can get you excited about those different codexes, which is going to be awesome. And obviously as well, I don't know if you've recently seen, but Vanguard Tactics are extremely honoured to become a playtester for Games Workshop. So again, it's just having that, being able to really help you guys in the right way, play the hobby to how you want, really get the most out of it and enjoy what a fantastic game this has become. So yeah, thank you so much, really, really appreciate it. Liking, commenting, subscribing really helps us reach more people and just telling more people about what we do as well. Okay, so anyway, take care and I'll see you on hopefully the Academy, and if not, another lesson. Take care.